Hey everybody, John here, obviously. And this is a thought. What I'm going to tell you is something that occurred to me after I finished recording the full video that follows this little clip. I think there is a productive comparison to be made in looking at the Holodomor, the rioting that is going on in the United States right now. You know, they're protesting, supposedly they're protesting the killing of a guy by a cop kneeling on his neck, or the larger, racism against black people, or the killing by cops and so on. But to me, it doesn't look like they're protesting the police or government policy. It looks like they're burning businesses in their own neighborhoods. You see people, looting Target, looting the local furniture store, looting a family-owned electronics store, and so on. And I think there's a productive comparison to make with something that I've seen Jordan Peterson talk about on a number of occasions, and that's the Holodomor, the genocide famine of Ukrainian Russia, where the most vindictive, vengeful, and resentful of the unproductive peasants in that society were fired up by intellectuals who went into the villages and taught these unproductive peasants, the angry, resentful, vengeful, that the successful farmers in their communities, the people who were marginally more successful than the very poorest, were only successful because of malicious theft against those who were less fortunate than themselves. And of course then these angry, malevolent, vengeful people went and booted down the doors of the productive farmers and murdered them and drove the rest into exile. And then there was an immediate famine where millions and millions of people starved to death.
Is this recording? Yes, it is. Hey everybody, John the Other, obviously. And I don't know, it's like 8:15 or something right now. It's still light outside, but it's getting dark. And I have just come back in from walking around my neighborhood. Now, I went out just a little bit before 7 because, as you might know, at 7 o'clock, at least where I live, every night, the whole neighborhood, the whole city starts cheering and whistling and banging pots and blowing, honking clown horns and so on. And typically this has gone on for 5 to 10, sometimes 15 minutes every night. A loud, continuous clapping, cheering, and clown horn honking every night at 7 o'clock. And sometimes it wakes me up if it's a night that I'm working. I would expect to get up at 9 to go to work, but no, they wake me up at 7, and it's the clown horns. Now, when this started, I didn't know what it was. When it first began, I was not aware that we had this, nightly horn honking. And I thought it was Antifa blocking the road or engaging in some other act of public destruction and mischief. Turns out, no. It's half my neighbors, or some fraction of my neighbors, going out on the porches and whistling and clapping at each other to show how compliant they are, maybe. But that's the thrust of this video, is what exactly is being cheered and clapped? And I still don't know the answer. Of course, if you went door to door, and I'm assuming this is happening where you are as well, so I'm assuming everybody knows what I'm talking about. If you went door to door and asked each of these ding-dongs, what is it you're actually cheering, you'd probably get a different answer at every door, and they'd probably all be wrong. Not just wrong, they'd be lying to you. They wouldn't tell you what they're actually cheering. Now, I've asked this online. I asked it in the Vancouver subreddit, and I got the immediate and somewhat angry answer. Of course they're clapping and cheering for frontline medical workers fighting the virus that we cannot name without being taken offline. Yeah, your video will get taken offline if you mention the name of the disease that everybody is supposedly so terrified of and dominates the news. But if you say it on your video on YouTube, boop, you'll be shut down. Isn't that a little strange? Isn't a little head scratcher for you? But you went knocking door to door. What would the answer be? And I can only speculate because I don't actually believe anybody who answers this question is telling me the truth. The first one is, we're coming together as a community. We're cheering. We're we're cheering for everybody to survive, and we're celebrating our life. That's nonsense. That's nonsense. If anybody gives you that answer, they're fucking lying. Because we are not living in an age where people are coming together. We're living in an age today where everybody's at each other's throats. The slightest disagreement over political viewpoint, and they're going to cancel, take away your job, and unperson you, which is, by the way, one of the ugliest, most evil things you can participate in. So what might they actually be cheering for? Well, okay, let's think about this. Well, there's a lot of people not working, getting subsidy checks, getting relief checks from their government, whether it's a provincial government or a state government or a federal government. There's a lot of money being thrown around for people to not work. And of course the government's doing this because it's the government that has stepped in and shut down everybody's jobs. Shut down hockey, shut down sports, shut down restaurants, shut down a lot of retail. So there's a huge amount of people whose jobs have been disappeared by government fiat. And so it's necessary to step in and start helping these people survive. Otherwise, you're going to have a massive social unrest, extreme violence, massive starvation, massive homelessness, death, destruction, like real damage. So maybe what people are celebrating is free money, I got a check. And I think that's actually kind of likely, but it's a bit ugly. It worries me if that's the answer for too many people, even if it's not an answer they're willing to admit. Because, well, there's some immediate, obvious problems, and then there's some longer-term problems. One of the immediate problems is that small businesses can't get employees to come to work because they make more money staying home and sitting on their hands and eating Cheetos than they'd be able to make by going to work. They're making more money doing nothing. And so they've demotivated people from going to work, and small businesses cannot get employees. That's not good. That is not good for society. That's not good for anybody's mental health. That's not good for anything long term. That's bad news, man. What else is bad news is that if you're celebrating supposedly free money, I'm rich, I'm making all this cash, getting all these checks. Well, where do those checks come from? Well, they're coming from the future, meaning they're coming from the taxes of your children. In the future, your children are going to be saddled with an unpayable, unserviceable debt that impoverishes their lives. I don't know that we're going to have a recovered economy after this. We're going to be saddled with a national debt that is so crushing, it might crush the next couple of generations. Is that what people are cheering for? Seems to me that that's at least a part of it. So that's not too good. But, another thing, it's a kind of a darker thought, and I'm not going to end this on a dark note, but let's talk about this. The idea of the individual as the primary, the most important thing. I mean, that's a very Western idea, and I think it's one of the reasons why the West is the preeminent civilization on the planet, or has been up until now. I mean, it seems to be in decline. So maybe the idea of collectivism, the collective, the communist idea, the group before all, the individual sacrifices to the group, and the individual is subsumed by the needs of the group, like collectivism, like ants, like termites, where the workers are disposable. They don't matter as individuals. The communist idea might be being celebrated. The people around me, I live in a working class neighborhood. I live with a lot of communists. I live with a lot of socialists. This is an NDP province, and I live in a NDP part of town. Maybe what they're celebrating is that we're going to try the communist experiment again. Like every single time that it's been tried in human civilization at a national scale, it results in massive death, starvation, mass murder, extreme violence, a great increase in human poverty and suffering. It is 100% reliable every single time. In fact, the ideology is implicitly murderous right from the get-go. So maybe they're celebrating that they're going to have their utopia. That's kind of dark. I don't want to end on that note. Maybe this is the punchline to a joke. And the joke is, nobody needs a magazine with 30 rounds. Ha ha, fooled ya. But if you were a person who's strongly individualistic, who believes in working hard, who believes in the responsibility of the individual, who believes in free will and the right to free speech, maybe what's being signaled, the virtue signaling, the clapping, the clown horn honking, it's like they're ringing the bell at the beginning of a match. Maybe the match is about to start, and this is your warning to get your tools to hand, get your supplies, get your exit route planned. And so, it's not so bad. You're being told in advance. Get your head on straight, because here it comes. Anyway, thanks very much for watching, and as always, have a lovely